I've been shopping for a small daily truck that I can throw a few goods in the box, tow the boat to the lake, maybe even drive to work every day. And it has to be reliable. The sad part is most trucks on today's market are small turbocharged engines, hybrid drivetrains. Nobody wants that. We know direct injection and turbocharging are absolutely the demise to many engines. That's why I put together this small list, 3 of the best small trucks you should be buying in 2026. Anything else would be a mistake. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
The first truck on my list is one that's quite clear. It's got a reputation for strong durability, reliability, but has changed. Toyota, we know that they've created a lot of turbo engines in the last few years, and a lot of them, they lack a little bit of reliability. But this here, in fact, is one of the most durable, reliable small pickup trucks, and it is always one of the top ones on my list. And we're talking about a 2000 to 2023 Toyota Tacoma as we're sitting right here. You know, because in 24 they came out all of a sudden with the 2.4 liter turbo 4, and while that seems to be gaining a little bit of steam, it still doesn't have the outright durability that a lot of these older V6 naturally aspirated drivetrains have. So because right here we have a 2021, but essentially the 20 to 23 model year has the same specifications. We'll get to the engine and drivetrain here in a second, but look, beautiful headlights, very robust. If you're taking this off-roading, you know, with that combination, of course, with plastic fender flares, ride height elevations, available accessories like this allows these vehicles to be lifted and driven off-road and last the test of time. Many people say, you know, do you buy a Jeep or do you buy a Tacoma? Those are the 2 outstanding brands and vehicles that people love to go off-roading with. Why? Well, for these vehicles, it's durability, and you're not going to get stuck in the bush. Here we have a TRD 4x4 Sport. Look at this, beautiful, well-built, simple handles that just don't break. This one actually gives you a backup camera there, and as well, I've said V6. This one's a V6 engine. Of course, beautiful ride height here. Look, you get leaf springs. That means you can haul a little bit more weight. With the rear suspensions, a lot of these vehicles these days putting on rear coils means they ride nice and smooth, but they're not as robust. Look, you get nice color keyed handles. This one here actually comes with a manual gearbox, which is absolutely amazing because that would be the transmission of choice for me. Under the hood of these vehicles, you get a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 producing about 278 with all of that power driven through either a 6-speed automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual gearbox means that these trucks are capable of doing just about anything you need it to do. The fuel economy is marginal. That's not really its forte, but running hundreds of thousands of miles effortlessly without anything breaking, that's what this does best. And Toyota has that reputation, not just for durability, but if you drive this for 5 or 10 years and you want to sell it in 10 years, you're still going to get the vast majority of your dollars out of it. Yes, you have some older technology. The tech in these Tacomas are a little bit outdated compared to some of the competition. You know, you get some nice grills, pretty robust components, but overall, these are absolutely amazing. Look, you can get sunroofs and other amenities in these vehicles, and honestly, there's very little for these vehicles, including, look, you even get a rear slider. So you get almost all of your luxury appointments in these vehicles without any of the sacrifices. And it ultimately boils down to the bottom line. With the tow capacity of over 6,000 pounds, the fact that you have either a 6-speed automatic or a manual gearbox means that there's versatility. Anybody could buy these. There's almost a truck for every buyer. But as great as these vehicles are, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you there wasn't a couple of common little issues that we need to be aware of. And the bottom line is the 6-speed automatic transmission that often drives, this one here is actually equipped with a manual, which is the way to go. But the automatic works well. It's not unreliable. But many owners, and I mean many owners, claim that it sort of doesn't know what gear it wants. It's sort of indecisive in shifting sometimes. Put your foot down and it sort of waits and waits. It's not a slipping. It just decides, yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm still hanging on there. It seems like a lot of the issues around programming can be rectified by taking your vehicle to the dealer, but it was that 6-speed automatic transmission that doesn't do the truck justice. That's why the 6-speed manual is the way to go. The other issue is oil leaks on the timing cover. Some of those engines here do potentially leak a little bit of oil. You got to watch out for some of those issues. Not a huge expense for about $1,200 to $1,800. That might happen in one lifetime. If it doesn't, maybe 150,000 miles down the road. It's really not something to be too alarmed of because ultimately there's very little else going on here. You don't have the turbocharged engines. You don't have all that turbocharging and extra heat under the cover there. And ultimately there's very little going on. The rear differential, the transmission, and the engine are well suited to each other, so they're well matched. one doesn't overcome the other, and these are ultimately built to last forever. The beauty is with these Toyotas in this little Tacoma, as we're noticing right here, yes, you can take your boat to the lake. Yes, you can haul your sea-doos, and you can do all of those little chores, throw your goods in the box, and you can pack 3, 4, 500,000 miles on these, and as long as you take care of the maintenance, it's not going to let you down. So before I get to the next one, and I promise you 3 of the best trucks, there is a wild card, and I'll throw in a 4th actually for a bonus. Here's the second truck. There's not many naturally aspirated V6 engines around anymore, and yes, this one by Nissan, the Frontier, actually has one of these naturally aspirated V6s, and it's one of the largest displacement engines as well compared to its competitors. This latest Frontier, built from 22 to 24, has the most up-to-date common connection between the transmission and the engine. This 3.8 liter naturally aspirated V6 produces 310 horsepower, made it up to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and of course does give you all of the modern technology you can expect from a lot of the modern day trucks. Of course, you have the extra crew cab action here, alloy wheels, beautiful taillights, somewhat up-to-date tech right there. Of course, backup cameras, and again, very much like the Tacoma, it has that little step guard on the bumper. It's a very versatile pickup truck, and yet, with all that payload capacity, over 5,000 pounds to towing ability for these trucks, and the fact that there's no turbos under the hood means that this truck is actually an up-and-comer. There's many critics out there that claim and scoff at a lot of products that Nissan makes, but I'll be honest, this is one of the best products that they're making currently today. And while everybody's creating these little turbo 4-cylinder and turbo 3s and hybrids, they're sticking with what works. It's a V6. There's not many of these around anymore. Remember old Chevy's 4.3 liter V6? That was one of the best. I can't believe they got rid of it. It's too bad. That was like their 5.7 V8. Those are 2 engines GM should have never gotten rid of. And as well, many other manufacturers are getting rid of some of their good engines. Well, guess what? Nissan is sticking around with this 3.8 liter V6. It's actual workhorse. It's comfortable, has some of the modern technology without being tech overload. You don't have the big screens. You don't have all of the big center console with an abundance of hideaway haptic and capacitive controls. It's simply buttons, knobs, controls, NAV6, and of course a 9-speed torque converter automatic transmission, which you just don't find these days very much in the market anymore. Look, even the headlights are very simple. Look, change your little bulb in there. It's a very simple setup, very simple equipment. If things fail on it, that's the beauty in simplicity. That's what the Frontier, like these vehicles, are all about, simplicity, and that wins the game. If you want a truck just to get around and pack the miles on, haul the odd little chore once in a while, haul the family around, and do it reliably without spending an extreme amount of time at the service shop just trying to get something sorted out, this is one of the best small trucks on the market today. Yes, GM, they use that Turbo Max. Well, you like turbos? Not me for a pickup truck, unless it's a diesel. And this does not have that. What about Ford? They're rocking some of the turbos in some of their engines, even the Rangers. This still keeps it simple. So that's why those trucks for me are out. But this one here, unfortunately, as good as it is and as juicy as it tastes, to actually bite into one of these, there are a couple of common issues. Some people complain about that 9-speed torque converter automatic transmission. That does sometimes at low speeds become kind of jerky, and there's a bit of a jump and a jerk. And that's something that a lot of customers complain about. It may or may not result into anything further than that. In most cases, it's not a reliability issue. It's more of a drivability concern. So it's not something to get too wound up about. There's another issue that some people talk about. It's not really a problem for reliability, but is in fact something that people worry about. And it's water pumps, because water pumps are generally something that's considered a wear item by most manufacturers. You put a water pump, you know, there's a bearing, there's a sleeve, there's a fluid that goes through it. And unfortunately, sometimes water pumps fail. The vanes wear out, the bearings wear out, and then sometimes it just results in you having to change a water pump. It's not uncommon. Well, there's a water pump and it's buried behind in the engine compartment, and the unfortunate reality, it's also chain driven. So there's a couple of points of potential failure with the water pump, which is also a predominantly well-known wear part in almost every other car on the planet. But that being said, most people say, and people that I know, I've got a couple mechanic buddies, one of which actually works for Nissan, and has told me he's never really seen any water pumps go out prematurely. Sure, with high miles, that's something that can go, but it's not really a common issue. The chain drive hasn't been an issue, and neither has just the fact that the water pumps let go prematurely. Sure, there will be additional labor to fix it and replace it when it comes time, but again, NAV6, you don't have turbos, you don't have intercoolers, you don't have all that extra plumbing and piping, and a lot of the reality is you can probably even wrench on this yourself. Forget about the right to repair your own vehicle. This one, no problem. You can fix this on your driveway by yourself. And the next one on the list has a very strong record for reliability too. It's the most comfortable, rides the smoothest, and has by far the nicest interior, and actually drives a lot like a car. We're talking about the Honda Ridgeline, which here, the latest generation started in around 2021 and of course runs current. These are great trucks. You can do all of your daily chores. You can drive, put hundreds of thousands of miles on these. And unfortunate to much of the competition, they can't hold a candle to this in terms of overall features and comfort level. These don't drive as much like a truck like the previous trucks we've talked about, because those are built on ladder frames. This one here is actually a unibody, so it rides more like a car, a minivan, or even a small lightweight SUV, which makes it probably less capable for heavy towing, but more capable for smoother rides and likely a better daily driver. I personally love the way the new Hot Ridgeline looks. The original had a little bit of that weird slope back, and when people went and put that extended canopy on the older Ridgeline, it looked just downright awkward. But they've really done a number on this latest generation. Look, you get this beautiful grille on there, and the black edition steps up the whole feature and look another level. This is an absolute gorgeous looking truck. Look at the features. Definitely a more of a high-tech type of vehicle and a truck than some of its previous vehicles that we just spoke of. Yes, you got lots of parts like this, which are great. It keeps the rocks off the body panels. High gloss wheels, beautiful glossy mirrors, but again, a lot of it's the black edition. Beautiful one touch in and you're away you go. Of course, you still have a little bit of that from previous generation, so it's a little bit true to that design language, but it's a beautiful truck. You get all kinds of this nice extension at the back, a rear slider on this truck, and look, a plastic insert, so it might even save you a few bucks on getting a spray and box liner. Look, beautiful. Drop down handle, you have a backup camera, and this Honda by Ridgeline, of course, is an absolute glorious piece. Of course, you also get these beautiful chrome tailpipes, and they really do a number of making this truck look a little dressier than the other two vehicles that we just spoke of. Sure, you can haul a little weight with this too. And with a 5,000 pound weight tow capacity on this vehicle, anything smaller, a boat, maybe your garden lawnmower, maybe even that Sea-Doo or any other garden projects you might have, you can tow around with this vehicle. A very versatile unit, and of course, it also offers that daily drivability. Now, this does come with that 280 horsepower V6, that's 3.5 liters, and it's made it up to a 9-speed torque converter auto, which are all great. These are all-wheel drive vehicles, and there is an unfortunate reality with that J35. As powerful and as torquey as it is, there are some issues. There's been a little bit of a history related to the VCM, or the variable cylinder management. It's basically like cylinder deactivation we've seen on some of the GM products with the 5.3s where they're blowing lifters. Similar issue here where higher mileage, all of a sudden you're starting to see oil consumption coming out of the tailpipe. You're starting to see potential wear and deterioration. The vehicle just isn't running quite as well because that variable cylinder management, ultimately in the pursuit of reduced emissions and reduced fuel consumption, is going to cost you somewhere. And sometimes it costs you right there. But get around that. Generally, that's a lower issue, and there's not a whole lot to deal with or worry about there unless you're packing the miles on huge. That being said, there's also an issue related to the bottom end of the engine. There's a big outstanding recall for some of the earlier J35s, which had rod bearing failures. A machining issue, and of course the rod bearings and the connecting rod itself, and the connecting rod and crankshaft resulted in potentially catastrophic engine failures. Now, there was a restricted numbers and certain batches, so you're gonna have to check NHTSA on that to get your actual numbers and understand which ones are affected. But that wasn't exclusive to the Ridgeline. You also saw that in vehicles like the MDX by Acura. It was also in the Honda Odyssey. And a variety of any of the vehicles that use that 3.5 liter V6 are generally potentially on that list of recalls. That being said, check the recalls and move on. It's a sturdy engine, a great automatic transmission, and a unibody platform that promises a smooth ride. I love these vehicles. I love the way they look, the way they sound. And as long as you do your research, get the right one. Don't buy the one that was built on Friday afternoon, if you know what I mean. Then you can ultimately get one of the best small pickup trucks that's not turbos. That's still one of the most reliable on the market. When everybody else is going hybrid and turbos, Honda decided to keep it simple and go with their V6. And I promised a fourth bonus, and that's the Ford Maverick, only the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine that's made it up to the hybrid drive because there's no turbos in that vehicle. Now, that is a Mazda derived. It's not a Mazda engine, but it's a very similar Atkinson style engine that you're finding in many Mazda products from many moons ago, but Ford's put their own sort of touch on it. That being said, no turbos on it, and it's a naturally aspirated, so it's a much simpler product. Now, if you're looking for something that's smaller, lighter weight, and might still do some of those small around the house chores, maybe that Maverick Hybrid will be the vehicle for you. Personally, I'd stay away from any of the turbo EcoBoost Mavericks myself, and the fact that the Ford Maverick is basically a smaller, lighter vehicle on a unibody platform doesn't instill a lot of confidence for any serious, significant towing. But if you're looking for something smaller, lighter, and maybe you're a brand loyalist, it's not the worst vehicle on the market by any means, and it is still naturally aspirated. And with all of that said, be sure to check out those videos for some more great picks and recommendations. If you're looking for something a little bit more luxurious, you're going to want to check out those cars. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.